Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Anybody there? Hello. Happy Saturday. It is the first super beautiful day in New York in a week or two, and it is just fantastic. Okay, so today is studio class. Studio class is when we take a look at a project by one of you guys. And today we're going to look at a project by Hamilton Berry. Not by Hamilton Berry, but Hamilton brought it to us. Hamilton can tell you a little bit more about it. But it's a quarantine project. A bunch of different people recording, probably on their iPhones, a bunch of different material and putting it all together. And we're making it sound better today. Yeah, Hamilton, tell us. Cool. So this is a track from Hamilton's wife's band from college. They're doing a kind of a reunion track, and they all recorded at home. And so this is going to be looking at a mixing project that probably resembles projects that you're going to have, where things are recorded maybe by different people in different places, not in ideal circumstances. And I think that's just going to be how it is as long as we cannot get back into the studio. So, yeah, we're going to just do what we can to clean up each track. I'll go through the process that I outlined in the last class. Let me pull up that link, and you can follow along with my thinking this way. So this is kind of a capstone to a whole mixing sequence. If you're new here, we've been doing mixing classes each Thursday. We've done 4 of them. And the last one outlines a whole step-by-step mixing process that you can follow along with at this link here. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm going to take off Hamilton's mixing. There we go. Actually, before we start, we're gonna do one whole listen through. I'm going to take the effects off for the moment. Not that Hamilton hasn't done a good job. I just want to start from scratch. And I'm going to resample the whole thing so we can remember what this used to sound like. Mixing can be kind of an unrewarding process because you make a lot of small changes and you have a lot of time to adjust to them. So by the end of the process, you can feel like you haven't done anything. It's nice to take a mix from the beginning and compare it. So we'll listen and I'll bounce. To record what I'm hearing, I create a new audio track and set its input to resampling. Then I arm it, and it will record, when I hit the record button here, it'll record whatever I hear in my speakers out the master track.
di ko nagawa? Bakit di ko nagawa? May babalik ko lang ang panahon. Di ka na iiwan pa. Ibigin na kita. Dapat sana noon pa. Ngunit di ko
Okay, that's the Geraldines. Oh, piano outro. Is this in the right place, Hamilton? Or is this supposed to go back here? Or... yeah. Okay, so we're gonna start. I'm gonna pull up the step-by-step process that we're gonna do. First, we're gonna get organized. I'll do that real quick and tell you what I think about. I think about putting drums on the bottom, grouping similar tracks. So I'm gonna select these drums and do Command G to group and call this drums. I want to keep vocals on top, but then go kind of in high instruments to low instruments. Guitars, I'll group these, Command G to group. Piano, bass, drums, what is on this audio track? Let's find out. Oh, right, this is my resample. Old version. Unmixed. Bounce. Okay. So we'll just mute this. You can select a region and do 0 to mute it. And I could also clean up a little more the regions. You know, they all start at different times. Well, that's good. This could all be tidied up a little bit, but I'm not going to go crazy with it. Okay. Next is that we organize our signal flow with groups. So I did that already. Let me do some super groups too. So we've got, I think, 3 major categories of instruments here. We've got our drums, we have our instruments, like the band, and we have our vocals on top. We're going to want to sit the vocals against the entire band, so it'll be nice to have them as just 2 separate units. Okay, next step is to find a reference track or 2. So I'm probably going to skip this step. I don't have a reference track in mind. Hamilton, if you want to send me something, I could show you guys how to do that. Like a reference track is just some track by some band or artist who sounds really good to you and is in kind of a similar genre, the track that you want to make your music sound like. But next we will walk through the tracks one by one. And for each track we're going to think about color, clarity, presence, space, and headroom. So let's start with the drums. So I've got just 2 drum tracks here, and they actually don't play at the same time ever. So I'm going to simplify my life and just call it one. Let's see, is it one instrument? Yeah, well, it was recorded at a different time, so I can tell. I I hear the room different on them. So I'm going to leave them actually as separate so I can try to make them match better. Yeah, that's cool. No worries about a reference track. Okay, so I'm soloing the drums. We'll start with just one track. And the first thing to do is to get to know the sound. And the best way to go exploring on the sound is with the EQ8. And let me move my face here. Hold on a second. I just don't need my face. What's the point? There we go. Okay, so we're gonna go exploring, which is to put on the audition, pick a bell curve, and just do a sweep and get to know this sound. So here's the smacky little bit of noise on top, helps it pop out of the attack. Starting to get more tone, more of that smack. This is where I find the sound most unattractive. Here's where it's really kind of boomy and boxy and room tony. So I'm actually gonna take that out right away. Our trick here is to try to make the sound as ugly as possible. Find the parts that are the least attractive and cut them just a little bit. Okay, so this is the body of the tone. And that's really the note. So that's a really sweet note. We don't want to cut that. That's really the punchiness of it. And I guess now we decide if we need more punch or more tone. That's nice. So we'll do a little boost at the point that we cut. So we don't need, under here, this is just noise. I don't get any of this in my headphones. That's really the lowest note that we want to hear of the drum. So I'm gonna cut there and boost it a little bit too. So we bring out the tone, which is this bump, and the punch, which is here. And now, like, do we need more smack? I'm not sure that we do. Before, after. Nice. So there's a little more space for other things in the mids now, and I find that to just be a more attractive sound. So that's clarity. Maybe clarity should be first on my list. I'm gonna change that right now. Okay. Next is compressor. So I'm thinking about presence. We've got a big difference between the attack of the sound and the sustain of the sound. So if we want to even this out a little bit, we don't want to do too much because a lot of the rhythmic expressiveness is in variety of attacks, but we could give it more body by compressing a little bit. So the body of the sound gets a little louder relative to the initial spikes. A little bit of hiss on the drum track. Maybe I'm not. Oh yeah, there's some hiss for sure. I'm maybe just a little deaf up high, or don't have the clearest headphones. Cool. Let's see if we can find the area with the most hiss, and then cut that a little bit. There. Okay, I start hearing it here. I really hear the hiss here. So let's try to grab a little of both of those regions. We could also see if it's a narrow band. It's not really a tone, it's more like a noise, which would have a wider band, but maybe there's a narrow. We don't have to cut out all the hiss, we just want to find where it's the worst. There. Cool. That sounds nice to me. Okay, compression. So I don't want to compress this too much, but a little bit will be nice. So I pull down the threshold. Again, I really like being in this third mode. Pull down the threshold, so I'm just cropping the top of the hair. I feel like I'm giving it a bowl cut. Just put the bowl on the head. Do a kind of gentle ratio. For drums, to keep the punch, we give it a kind of a longer attack. But yeah, I don't know, we'll try that. So I've switched over to gain reduction mode just to see how much is getting pulled off, and it's really not very much. So I'm going to turn up the ratio a little more, pull the threshold down a little more. Cool. Okay, so now I'm seeing that I have a little bit of peaks that I can make up. So the foreground layer is the sound that I'm hearing, and the background layer is what it used to be. And I just want to make the peaks, I want to make up the difference in those peaks. Cool, so what I'm hearing here is more body to the tone. What do you think? Here it is on. I must feel like there's too much now. I might do another EQ after this. Well, it's really just this. Cool. All right, I'm happy with these drums. They already have some space from the room tone on there. So we've talked about presence, we've talked about clarity. Space, we'll probably add a little bit of reverb to, oh, there already is a bit here. Oh, hiss in the stream. Let's do a little test. Is there a hiss if I turn off my microphone? Okay, so my mic was just as hot as it can be, and I think it needs to be a little shy of that. So let me know if you hear that hiss again. Yeah. Okay. So, space, we'll probably want to add a little bit of reverb to glue it to stuff. Something approximate for the moment. Hey, great. Okay. I'm glad we sorted that out. Thanks for letting me know about sound stuff. Okay, then my next thought is gain staging. So I just want to pull this down. You know, my bass line, I like to set everything at -6. We'll figure out how this fits into the whole later, but I just see that I have a good bit of headroom here. It's not going all the way up to the top, so I still have plenty of room for other sounds to mix with it and not overflow my master. Okay, so the last thing is color. And I like a natural sound on these for the moment. I think that's the right vibe for this band. I'm not going to do any other effects here on the drums right now. Okay, let's... and I'll save fixing that drum fill for later. Let's keep moving up the instruments going through that same process. So here's Hamilton on cello. I'm going to pan it to the center, take the reverb off for a moment. Think first about clarity. So EQ, go exploring, get to know this sound. So there's a little noise. I do normally start at the bottom when I mix. I'm not sure that's necessarily a good thing. You really just need to do each track at one by one, so it doesn't quite matter. Okay, so here it's got a really nice kind of presence. It's speaking well here. Here I feel like it's a lot more in a room, so if we want to make it sound a little less roomy, we could maybe cut in that frequency. But really, this is where the sound to me is the most unattractive. It's like kind of woolly and boxy and muffled. So I'm going to give it a little dip there. Since we're working with an acoustic instrument, we don't want to do big changes here. 3 dB plus or minus is really good rule of thumb limit. So we don't want it to sound unnatural. A little can go a long way. So let's keep searching down. So down here, let's figure out where we want to cut it first. So I'm going to sweep up until I start hearing tone. I don't want to lose any tone. So there's occasionally a low note that... Yeah. Okay, so I think we can safely cut around here. Maybe bring out its really sparkly, speaky place. Great. So I'm enjoying that a lot better. It's subtle, but it's just more clear. And now let's work on presence. So let's find a place where he's playing the loudest. Well, first of all, he seems to have boosted this a lot. So I'm going to get the regions in line. And Tech is asking, how do I know that I'm not making it too bright for the mix when I go one by one? I don't know. I'm not thinking about brightening. I mean, I like brightening everything. I think most things when you record them need a little bit of brightening. So I have started to think that my mixes lately could be a little warmer. So yeah, maybe I should temper that impulse in myself all the time. But I don't think... I don't know. You can always go back and adjust if you feel like it's too bright. So at the moment, I just want to find a couple of loud notes that we can loop over to compress. Okay, so I've pulled down the threshold to take the tops off, but not everything. I'll bring up the ratio. Again, we're going for a natural sound, so I want to keep my ratio probably between like 2 and 4. Let's say 3. And now I can boost the output to make up the difference. So I'm just trying to match peaks here. The body, of course, is going to be higher, and that's the whole point. Great. And let's think about color on this a little bit. I'm interested in trying out a little bit of saturation on here. I should have done this first, and that's why I put color first on my list. I'm going to move it back. Because color is going to change the volume, is going to change the EQ, and then you want to work on the sound that actually is coming out, not EQ it, compress it, and then change the sound. So I suggest doing this earlier in the chain. So we may need to do some adjusting here. So the saturator just adds just a little bit of distortion, actually, that boosts some of the high frequencies and is going to make this just a little brighter, warmer, stand out in the mix. I mean, it's still plenty warm, I think. Most of the energy is down here. Great. The next thing we think about, again, is space. So we'll just put a bit of it into the reverb and we can adjust relatives later. Well, I haven't picked a reverb for the track yet. Let's do that. So I'm going to solo the reverb here, take everything out of it except the cello. So I think we want to keep the room vibe here. Everyone recorded it in a small place. We want to keep it intimate, I think. So let me pick a room preset. But this, I think, is going to be too muddy, so I'm going to EQ it a little brighter like this. Maybe a little bit of a smaller space. That sounds really nice to me. So I'll pull this back to it's a little more subliminal. Oh yeah, Nick is asking about soloing EQ bands. This is a great trick. It's the audition button on the EQ8. You turn that on, and whenever you have your mouse down, you only hear what's being affected by that EQ. Cool. So that is the cello sound. Oh, I just want to say thanks. I noticed that somebody is hosting me right now. Musser Music. I just want to give this guy a shout out. If you want, this guy is doing amazing teaching stuff. He does classes almost every night this week. I just discovered him. I learned a bunch watching him. I'm going to put it in the chat. This guy. If you want to learn more, he goes really deep on effects and theory, sound theory. He's on the engineering stuff and physics of sound kind of thing. He's a lot smarter than me. So I recommend you follow him as well. Thanks for hosting. Okay, So that's my cello for the moment. Let's keep going. Bass. Okay, I heard a little glitching. I thought there may be some warping going on, but he's actually transposing. What is it? It's the low note of a guitar, isn't it? Transposed down. Nice. So we'll get a better sound perhaps with complex mode. Yeah, that sounds a little better. Cool. So let's give this a little bit of a bass guitar treatment. So I'm going to reach for the amp. Why not use a bass preset on the amp emulator here? I don't use this much, but I'm about to. I'm gonna get myself an electric guitar. I'm super excited, but I haven't had one since I was a teenager, so I haven't used the amp preset very much. But that sounds good. We're just gonna add some bass here, mix it in, not all the way. We want to keep some of the natural sound in here too. That sounds great. Maybe a little saturator on it as well. No, actually, I hear that kind of blowing it out and messing up the clarity a bit. So I'm gonna just EQ now. So again, we're gonna sweep with audition mode on to learn about the sound. So here's just like a little finger noise. Stuff like that on a bass is actually really helpful for getting it to speak through a mix. Here we're getting some of the more clear, higher harmonics. I really like how it sounds here, so I'm gonna boost that a little bit. Make it a little narrower. Keep going down. I'm just here to learn about the sound and boost what I like and cut what I don't like. So there's some punchiness. Here's a kind of boxy tone. And that's the sub bass bottom. So actually here is not so attractive to me. I think that if we make some space here, the subtone will speak better and it'll just be more clear in the whole mix. So here's before. Tell me what you think. This is before. And after. I like that. So now let's do a little bit of compression. I'm seeing a pretty big variety in how the notes are hit. And with bass, you know, there's some expressive variation here for sure that we don't want to lose. But our lowest elements, our bass and our kick drum, I often feel like we want to make more reliable. We want to make more consistent to give a stronger foundation. So we want to give them more presence with some compression. So taking off some of the top, ratio, again, attack. We want a slower attack if we want more punch, and a faster attack if we want to control the initial transients. I don't mind letting them speak through. There's not huge spikes at the beginning. Cool. A nice approximate setting. I'm gonna now boost my out to make up for the loss. And now there's just more body to the tone. You can see that in the decay, we just have more sound longer. Cool. Let's keep going. Piano. I'm going to go real fast here and maybe not explain everything so that I can get to everything. A lot of this is repetition. Cool. Killing automation, panning at center for the moment. This sounds really roomy. I'm going to take it off Pro. Pro is really for voices. I'm going to put it back on Complex. I think that's the cleanest. EQ. I'm going to sweep and look for where it's kind of boxy and roomy. Okay, so maybe there. Okay, a lot of noise down here. So we'll do our bracketing EQ. Let's find that first, actually. I'm sweeping up till I hear tone. Great, and then pull back a little bit so I don't cut that tone. Okay, so I see a really strong resonant frequency here. Maybe I'll focus on it with Search and Destroy that we talked about in our EQ class. And cut it. Great, that is a lot more palatable. You almost don't notice them, and then you cut them and you're like, oh, thank God. So here's some warmth. I don't want to mess with that too much. It is a little muddy though. Not quite sure what to do about that in this case. Okay, and now maybe give it a little bump. Up here. Okay. Okay, so we may need to do some work on that to sit it into the mix, because now we've got stuff in the middle range. The piano, the guitars are going to compete a lot. So we'll come back to that. Okay, guitars. I'm not going to compress this. I really hate an overcompressed piano sound, and maybe we'll need to come back to it later, but let's keep going. Okay, so Hamilton has panned these left and right. I think that's a good idea, because we've got two guitars competing for space. It'll be nice to give them some space with some separation. Okay, lead guitar. I'm going to move it to the middle just to hear it more clearly for the moment, though. Okay, my thought here is that this needs to be brighter. Cut the noise on the bottom. Even that smacky stuff we don't really need. There's a lot. We'll let our drums do that job. So this is kind of boxy. I'm gonna start moderating that with a more gentle cut slope here. That's a little boxy. Okay, that's nice and clear. Okay, and we definitely need to even this out with some compression. Tons of variation in the volumes of these notes. Let's give it a little saturation too. not that much, and then, oops, I'm gonna boost by 4 and then cut by 4, and we'll be in the same ballpark. That sounds pretty nice. And boost to make up the difference. Yeah, compression ratio. I don't have a super sensitive understanding of this to impart to you. Trial and error is really, and like an ear training that comes from lots of trial and error is irreplaceable here. But I think of ratios between 2 and 4 as being more natural, and above 4 you start to get into more dramatic effect, and it can sound less transparent. You know, if we're going for something that sounds more unnatural, we can do really high ones, but I'm trying to keep the natural quality of the instrument here. So I don't want to do so much as this. I'm still hearing a lot of variations, so I'm gonna do a higher ratio here. Okay, that feels more even to me. Here we go with the rhythm guitar. Okay, so this has the cute... Somebody said it was a dog. It sounds like a baby to me. Okay, one thing that I would do but I can't do is tune the guitar. Okay, so we're gonna do our cutting. Yeah, I'm seeing the discussion here. I have on my default audio track an EQ. I don't compress every track. But yeah, if you want to devise yourself an audio rack that saves you time, go for it. Okay, so now I'm looking for the most unattractive part of the sound. This is going to contribute to warmth, but it's also going to add some mud. I'm going to do the same as before and give it a more gentle sweep so I can keep but moderate some of these lower frequencies. Let's use the piano for warmth and have the guitar focus more up high. Okay, so there's a lot of noise up here. I might actually do a little bracketing on top as well. Now just see if there's anything in here that I might want to boost or cut. So yeah, this is still all pretty muddy to me. Okay, that's more clear. Yeah. Okay, I'll compress it a little bit. I want this to work a little faster maybe, so I'm gonna switch to peak. Again, we went super deep on the compressor and the EQ past couple of Thursdays. So you can go back and look at old classes if you want to see about all the different settings. Okay, so I'm going to do a little parallel compression here and over compress it. And so this is the overcompressed sound. It sounds pretty lifeless, but it's even. And I'm gonna just mix that in some with the natural sound. Okay, that doesn't sound great to me yet, but in the interest of getting through a whole process here, I'm gonna keep moving forward. Okay, on to the voice.
Ng gabi, puno ng pagsisisi, wala.
Step 1, clarity. Bracket EQ. Cut the parts of the sound that we don't need. Okay, so here's some body of the note. I don't want to lose that. But everything below there we don't need. This is a pretty noisy track. I think this was the one recorded least ideally. I hear a lot of room, resonance, and noise.
Ng gabi, puno ng pagsisisi, wala na.
Okay, so I'm going to sweep up and just look for the places where it's the boxiest.
Ng gabi,
There.
puno ng pagsisisi, wala na, wala nang ng gabi, puno ng pagsisisi, wala na, wala nang ng gabi.
So EQing vocals is usually the hardest thing to EQ because there's lots of resonant frequencies that need some kind of taming.
Ng
I'm not going to go super deep into that. Also, I didn't make my normal caveat today. I'm not a professional mixing engineer. I'm a composer who mixes probably like you guys are. So, yeah, somebody who does this all day, every day could certainly tell you things that I don't know. But vocals are tricky.
ng gabi, puno ng pagsisisi.
And now I'm going to give it a little more presence up high. By boxy, I just mean like, does the sound like it's in a box? Like, is it muffled and unattractive?
Pagsisisi.
Okay, so I'm just looking now for the brightness. Where is the voice going to speak and cut through with the most clarity? And in the way that sounds natural. So this doesn't sound natural to me. But up to here,
Puno ng pagsisisi, wala na,
that's
wala
pretty nice. So I'm going to let that go.
ng gabi, puno ng pagsisisi, wala na,
Yeah, so that sounds,
wala nang
this sounds like it's,
ng
I can hear
gabi.
it's stuck in something. And this is just a little more clear and transparent. Okay. Sorry I'm rushing through this stuff, but I want to get through the whole process. So on each of these, we've thought about clarity, we've thought about presence, we've thought about color on some of them, we've thought about space on some of them. We'll do a whole space pass in a moment when we think about the whole thing. And headroom. So we want to, I'm just going to put everything at -6 to make sure that we have some headroom across the board here. There's one other EQ thing that I want to touch on, and this would be a good thing to practice it with. So these are the two guitars. They're the same guitar, so they're going to compete with each other. No, let's come back to that. We'll do it with the vocals. I was going to show some mirror EQ. I'm inclined to cut a little space in the guitar rhythm track and boost the same amount of space in the guitar lead track so that it sits a little better on top. But we'll I'll demonstrate how to do that with the vocals and the rest. That'll be better. Okay, so now we're going to bubble up. We've looked at each individual track. We're going to bubble up to each group and get the groups sounding good inside of themselves. So I'm going to go back to Hamilton's idea of this. Okay, so just want to get a decent balance between the two. I don't want them that separate, actually. I think that this guitar might sound good with a little delay on it. Just an idea. So there's a bit more room. So these are the sends. They're sending to these return tracks with return and delay on them. And since I don't love the way that rhythm guitar sounds, I'm keeping it behind and letting the lead guitar be on top. Okay, this could be endlessly refined, but I'm just doing a real rough pass here. Now within the band group, let's get a decent balance between these things. So that cello sounds really beautiful out front, but I think that I need to, oh, it's not, get our headroom bass line here. Cool, I'm gonna take the cello back a little bit. I'm gonna leave the piano in the middle. Oh, that's not the one. I want the lead guitar to come out a little more. Rhythm guitar, I'd like it to be less about the rhythm guitar and more about the piano. Nice. Okay. And now we're gonna settle. So we've bubbled up from our track to our group level, and then balance the groups against each other. So say I had spent a while and got a really perfect band balance. Now we're going to balance the band against the vocals. Let's leave the drums out of it for a moment. Oh man, I didn't compress the vocals. What am I thinking? Let's find a couple of loud notes here. Cool, and let's think about space. We definitely want it to be warm in the room here. Just want to take out more of that boxiness. But I don't want to lose the warmth of the voice. This is the devil's bargain here. Okay. Yeah, let's compare this moment to the unmixed bounce. Oh, let's just get the drums in the mix here. let's compare that to how it sounded unmixed. So here's the unmixed portion, soloed.
Maisip pa, maisip pa, maisip pa.
So what I'm noticing is that unmixed, it's warmer but a lot less clear.
Maisip pa,
It's also louder. Let's balance the...
maisip pa.
Yeah. Okay, so... Yeah, right?
Maisip pa,
This is before, and this is after.
maisip pa, maisip pa.
Okay, so just to finish out the process in our last minute here, we've bubbled up from regions, getting them balanced, to tracks, getting them balanced and sounding good, to groups, and now to the whole track. Now we're thinking, well, I would spend a minute or a little while thinking about space, panning, reverb. Maybe there are other effects that we want to put on this. I think the vocals, like, we could automate a little bit of delay into them on the long notes, would make them nice and thick. If we want a more produced sound, we could think about more effects. But then we've bubbled all the way up to the master track. And on the master track, we might want to do like a little bit of glue compression or multiband dynamics or the compressor and EQ again. So let's just think through. This is a super, super stripped down mastering scenario, but we may turn down the threshold a little bit. We just want gentle compression at this stage. And so we want something with kind of a slowish attack. And where we set our threshold so we just get a couple of dBs of gain reduction. And then we would look at our reference track and say, how does it look in the EQ meter, and how can we make our EQ match? The glue compressor is what they recommend for drums, which I take to mean a signal that has a really heterogeneous content, right? Drums have lots of different sounds of different lengths, of different qualities in them. So I think it's probably good on a group or a master as well for the same reason, that for whatever reason, I'm not sure how the algorithm differs here, but you could do this with the compressor. You could do this with multiband, which is a different compressor on the high, mids, and lows. Cool. And now we might do one last EQ shaping a little bit. And I need to sleep on this to know quite what this needs, but we can do our same process of like sweeping through, finding where it's the most unattractive, cutting that a little bit. So here's our punch and our warmth. This is a kind of woolly, boxiness, maybe a gentle thing there, and I'll do one more. Let's find something we want more of. That sounds nice. So that's like 1.5 kilohertz. A little boost there. You know, um, you're right. I wouldn't. This was here because it's my default EQ setting. You still don't need stuff below like 30, 40 hertz. But it does take up headroom. But I see masters with lots of stuff going on down here. Still, I just say, why? Why do we need it? Cool. So, that is a quick run through the whole process. Again, if you want to take a look at the materials for the mixing classes, you can go back to the past classes and past notes. I'm looking here for the link to link you to all of that material. There's the link to all of my past classes, all the notes. If you're just joining us today, thanks for coming by. Saturdays are like this, where we take a look at one of your projects, but on Tuesdays, there are creative challenges. Thursdays are instrument and effect technical deep dives. And I'm going to do something different this week, just as an experiment. My class at Juilliard finished up. It was an evening class on Tuesdays, and so now I have a free evening. And I'm going to do the creative challenge class this week twice. I'm going to do it at 1 p.m. and I'm going to do it at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So I'll send this out in the email. If you're not on the email list, go ahead and sign up below. There's a link. If you haven't followed this channel, you can click the heart above. If you have Amazon Prime and want to give me a little bit of money for free, you can. There are instructions down below for that. All classes are by donation only. If you haven't donated in a while, maybe today is your day. And this Tuesday, we're going to start a new sequence that's all composition focused. You're going to write better melodies on Tuesday. We're going to write better chord progressions. The next Tuesday, we're going to write better rhythms the Tuesday after that. And yeah, I'm just going to experiment this week with I'm going to do the same class twice. This Tuesday. That was my current idea, but if there are those of you who would show up twice and you want different material, raise your hand right now and I can think about how I can make it interesting and varied for you as well. But yeah, I just have a free evening and I want to see if doing it at an evening time is more useful for some of you guys. So, thanks so much for coming. I'm going to stick around a few minutes for questions, but otherwise, have a great weekend. I hope the weather is beautiful there as it is finally here in New York. I'm going to get out and play scales on the guitar on the roof all afternoon. So I hope you get to do something nice too. Cool. So Benice Club would show up twice if it was different material, and Shram Nate and Gabriella. Okay. So here it is about Tuesdays. There's material, but also on Tuesdays, you sit and do work. I will set you up with a task and then give you an amount of time to work on that task. So doing that task twice, even if it's the same task, you're going to come up with something different and get better at the process. So I won't make them radically different, but because I think you're going to find ways to make them different in the course of your composition. Yeah, so Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you can link it with your Twitch account, and it's called Twitch Prime. And what that gives you is one free subscription to a channel. And then you can come over here, and there's a way to subscribe. I forget what it looks like. It's up at the top. There's a button or something. And you subscribe to this channel, and it's like, I don't know, $5 a month, that half of which comes to me. And it doesn't cost you anything. Also, you get no ads if you subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe to the channel and pay money. there's sort of perks and stuff, but I'm really new to Twitch. I don't know how they work, and honestly, I really don't care about like different bitmojis for you and stuff like that. So maybe there's other ways I can incentivize that for you going on in the future. But if you do want to make a recurring kind of subscription situation, actually, I discourage you from doing Twitch. Just go straight to PayPal. I'll keep the whole thing rather than splitting it with Twitch. But blah, blah, blah. That's how subscription works. I am starting to learn. Cool. All right. Any other questions about what we did today? Thanks, Nick. Oh, next week, let me tell you guys, we are going to have a treat. Pardon me, just a second. Got distracted. Okay, so next Saturday, Nick Ravel, we have another. So we have lots of awesome string players on these Saturdays so far. We have another world-class violist. Nick Ravel is going to do our studio class next week, and he's going to do a concert. I don't know if I have much to teach him. He's going to teach us. He's awesome with Ableton. He's done a whole album where he does live performance on the viola with looping and effects and triggered samples and all kinds of stuff. It's really, really awesome. Go check out Nick Plays Viola here on Twitch. He does concerts through the week. They're super beautiful and cool, and he shows you how his Ableton setups work. And he's going to be our guest next Saturday to show us his live performance setup and teach us how it all works and perform some music for us. Woot. Hamilton and Nick play in a string quartet also that's really great called the Public Quartet. And they were nominated for a Grammy this year. But they lost to Nate Schramm. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Nate's going to be there. It'll be just a little viola fest. Cool. So yeah, Hamilton gave a request for how would I handle cleaning up the drum fill section. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into that bit. It's going to be a little tricky because we're not on the grid. And it will take a little time to get all the tracks onto the grid. So I'm going to wing this a little bit. I'm going to try to just freestyle it, not with the grid, but just with my ears. We will see if that works. Never mind, Hamilton, you put it on the grid. Way to go. That's great. I take it back. This is going to be easy. Okay. Okay. So, Hamilton, you got to tell me what you want here. Let's listen. I'm hearing like a fermata. I hear everybody slowing down here. And then is this a fill that gets us back into something? So should it be out of time at all? Should it all be in time? What do you think? Getting into the break doesn't bother you. Okay. Okay, so what I'm hearing in this fill is okay. So getting into the break, we'll say there's a little bit of time.
Bakit di
Leave
ko
it on the last fermata. Okay, so this is like free time. I'm going to mute this for a second. Let's just get lined up on a downbeat where we want this to happen. Okay, so that's the downbeat. I'm going to just, for tidiness, cut the pickup. We'll get it back in a moment. And cut this. Okay, so I'm going to move all of this stuff onto a downbeat. So this will be too much time. We can cut it later. Drum fill, drum fill, drum fill. Drum fill, drum fill, drum fill. And boom. Okay, so it's not super in time, but I think it's enough in time. So now I'll pull these back to get our pickups. A boom, boom. Okay, so now out of this drum fill, it's just a little sloppy, right? So I'm going to do the same thing. Chop this, put it on downbeat. Mute everything else. All of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's kind of sloppy at the end, but I can tell what is supposed to be happening here, I think. So let me clean this area up. I'm going to start at the very beginning and say set 1, 1, 1 here. So now I can see time matching time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Okay, so I'm just counting what I hear, and I'm going to make what I hear match what I see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. So this should be on 2. So I make it so with a warp marker. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now this is a little late. 1, 2, 3, 4. This should be on 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is on that, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, that's now kind of making sense as music to me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Daga 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 daga. Oh, the third drum hit is the downbeat. Okay, let's. Thank you. Okay, so this third hit is the downbeat. So we'll put a marker there. Set that to 1, 1, 1. To get rid of all of these, I'm going to do warp 76 BPM from here. That just plays it at original tempo. I'm gonna get rid of this as well. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So just listening and looking for a beat in a bar or two that is clearly where I know exactly where it's supposed to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Daga 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 doompa. Okay, so that should be on 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Maybe these are supposed to be even 16th notes. Yaka tuka, daka tuku taku ta tu Yaka tuka, tuku ta tuka 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 ta tuka. All right, so I'm just not quite sure what to do with this. I'm seeing even 16th notes. And so let's try making them that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 30 seconds. Daga daga duka. Let's say it's daga daga duga duga. I just don't quite understand this phrase. So I'm just gonna play with it until it sounds right. 16th triplets. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so maybe this. Taka 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 tuka tuka taka. Taka ta tuka tu. Buttaga buttaga. Buttaga butta. Oh, let's see. So that's putting 4. If it continues with triplet 16ths. Buttaga 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 butta. Maybe we cut this last note. Bugga dugga. Yeah, that's what I thought. One less hit. Except that doesn't get us to a downbeat. Well, maybe that's good. Bakata dakata dagadagatum. And then let's just hear what that sounds like. Oh, here's my downbeat. I'm gonna put a marker here. Yeah. Still feels a little wonky. Triplet, triplet. So we'll evenly space those triplets. Hamilton, you don't think you have the downbeat right? Which downbeat? Let me know if you want me to do something different. This kind of works for me. So normally beats is good for drum stuff because in the stretching of audio, it makes sure to preserve the initial transients so it doesn't mess up the initial punch of drums. But I'm hearing stretching happening here in kind of the room tone. I'm gonna see if I get better with complex here. And then I'm just gonna do a little more cleaning up here. Ticka. Tuck. you got confused? Were you playing these drums, Hamilton? Cool. That works well for me. You could finesse it forever. Well, not forever. You could finesse it a lot more than this, but that's the basic process. No, sounds good, man. Hand drums are tough. You really feel like you should be able to just be able to play one. If you know, I like play on my body all the time, and I'm like, I'm good at this. And then I hit a drum, and it's a totally different thing. Okay, so I'm gonna put the same EQ. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm gonna take the EQ and compressor from this drum track and put it on the whole drum group. And I'm just gonna take this down a little bit to match volume. And it's panned so differently. We gotta deal with that. I'm gonna put a utility on, just like the stereo of it. It's much more. It's not panned differently, but where you place the mic makes the stereo image really different. So this feels just like a little off to one side, and this feels a lot off to the other. So I'm gonna narrow the width. And I want to swap my left and right. And make it narrower. Yeah. Okay, maybe make it a little louder. Okay. Gabriella, I just heard the first time he recorded it, so he recorded both of them in stereo. And there were, one of the mics was closer to the drum than the other mic. So it was louder. It felt lopsided. And I felt like I think I have my headphones on backwards, but I felt like the regular drum was on my left side a little bit, and the fill was on the right side a lot. And it's not about panning, it's about how he recorded the stereo. So to bring it from the right to the left side, I did that utility swap to swap the left and the right channels of stereo. Cool, and maybe this is a little too loud. Not everything needs to be in stereo. I'm just going to do an experiment and make the drums mono here. Nah, I like it stereo. But there's a temptation to make everything really big and wide and stereo and beautiful like that. But it takes more space. And you can often get cleaner and clearer mixes if you do some things in mono. Mono reverbs, mono delays can be cool. Even though they change the sense of space, you can use a lot more of them, and they clog up less of your, of the space in your mix, and you can get cleaner, clearer mixes if you do some mono. Okay. Any other questions? Hamilton, thank you so much for letting us work on this, and for sharing it with everybody else to practice on. I think that was really, I hope that was helpful for people to get a chance to take a look at this first. I'm going to give you this back. I'll save this session in case you want to keep my settings. And otherwise, I'm excited about this coming week and the composition sequence that I'm about to start. Okay. Okay, I'm going to call it a day. Get up on that roof. Hope you guys have a great week. Bye.